All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Phil Pugh, Director of Emergency Management here at Memorial Hospital Belleville, and your Regional Hospital Coordinator, Coalition Chair. Thank you guys for taking the time out to join us with our annual training from the Grants Management Office over at BJC for our current year, the FY20 budget proposal BP1 year. Over at our Grants Management Office, we've got Christina Hendon Atkins, who most of you guys are pretty familiar with. Also, I believe we have Lisa and Sheila in the background. Thank you for also joining us. This training is, I want to preface this with the training that you guys will go through today is probably very similar to previous years, but there are some slight changes. So if you have attended in the past and you see these slides and they look kind of familiar, there are a few differences as we go forward. While the training, we're not going to say that this training is mandatory and everything like that, this is highly beneficial training. It's your opportunity to ask the experts on how we're to go forward. And what I can say for those that stick to the guidelines as outlined in this training, your experience going forward is going to be one that isn't filled with a bunch of errors. So I sent out copies of those slides to everybody in the region. This video or this presentation will be recorded and put to our page and there for posterity. So you can always access it. All you have to do is log into our portal or go to our website. This will actually be a hidden one on not the website, excuse me, on our YouTube page. It'll be a hidden video on our YouTube page, but it will be public within our portal. So you can access that at any time going forward. So if you have questions. So since we did kind of gather, looks still like we still got around the same amount of folks online. I haven't seen any folks grow. I'd like to, let's just double check. All right. I guess I'd like for us to go ahead and get started. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christina and crew. And as you need, all you have to do is say slide and I will progress the slides on.
Hi, this is Christina. We're just gonna go through some guidance on how to bill and some things to look for and make sure that you're aware of. So you want to go ahead and go to number 2, Phil? It doesn't show me where you're at. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. Sorry, Phil. I wasn't following you.
No problem.
We're going to go over, the subrecipient grant agreement, some of the post-award process, go over some frequent errors that we're seeing, and we just want to make sure that you know that the materials presented are intended to cover our highlighted topics and reminders and are not intended to be all-inclusive. The subgrantees are subject to all terms and conditions of the notice of award, and we do include the notice of award in our subgrantee agreements. You can kind of go to 3. We're going to go first over the subrecipient grant agreement.
Yep. I'm on a conference call.
So each subgrantee will need to review and provide any questions or comments to the BJC GMO office. And we do recommend a legal review for all contractual agreements prior to execution. The grant will include, but is not limited to, the following items. There will be invoicing and programmatic reporting terms, an approved budget, performance, the responsibilities of prospective parties, and terms and conditions.
Hey, stand by Christina, stand by 1 second. It sounds like we have some feedback from some of our participants potentially. If you are on the line, please do me a favor and mute your line. Please don't put it on hold. Please mute your line so as to not talk over top of the presenter. Thank you.
So the grant agreement will include invoicing and programmatic reporting terms. You will be reporting to Phil with regard to those programmatic reporting terms, and I believe you have monthly meetings. The invoicing will be on a monthly basis to us. There'll be an approved budget, and an approved period of performance. That period of performance will go through 6/30/2020. It is not anticipated that any of those will be extended. Responsibilities of the prospective parties will be included in the agreement, and any specific terms or conditions and the uniform guidance as a whole is also referenced in those agreements. Any questions so far? Okay, so on number 5, we're going to start going into the post-award administration. We're going to kind of go over the federal procurement, travel expenses, allowable, allocable, and reasonable expenses, what to do with budget modifications, if there's a change in scope or the project director, invoicing and reporting procedures, invoicing reminders, and audit requirements and documentation retention. So the federal procurement standards have basically three different levels of procurement. The first one is micro purchase threshold, which is anything currently under $10,000 in aggregate. Those do not require competitive quotes. Then there's the small purchase procedures, which include anything from $10,000 to $250,000. So if anything that you're purchasing is above $10,000 in aggregate, you should be doing procedures in place to make sure that you're following all the guidelines with that, and that's receiving multiple quotes, checking .gov, which we'll go over some of that later as well, and the next one. And if you need some guidance on what that is, you can certainly ask, and we'll try to point you in the right direction. I don't think most of you guys have things over 10,000. So the procurement by small purchase procedures. The compliance with federal procurement standards should be met prior to the purchase, not after. If you don't do it beforehand, it's not allowable. The quotes must be adequate from a number of qualified sources, at least 3, unless 3 are not available, it's just not possible, or if it's a sole source item. And we also have to check SAM.gov to make sure that they're not debarred or have any exclusions on them and that they're current. I'm going to go ahead and go to travel still. So when it comes to travel, we need to make sure people are aware that we cannot reimburse for travel until it has actually occurred. And that's actually the same for training as well. So if you're booking travel or training and you're paying for it now, but it's not happening for another 2 months, you need to hold those costs back and bill them in the month in which the training occurs. So if it occurs on, February 15th, when you go to prepare that February bill, you can include it there, but not before it occurs. So allowable, allocable, and reasonable expenses. A subgrant state institution is responsible for ensuring the cost charged to a federal sponsored grant are allocable, allowable, and reasonable. All subgrantee costs must be allowable per the approved budget in accordance with uniform guidance cost principles. So it's not just that it's in the budget, you got to make sure that it is actually an allowable item under the uniform guidance as well. All subgrantee expenses must fall within the approved period of performance as defined in the grant agreement. I know a lot of you have expressed concern that you haven't gotten them yet. As long as your subgrantee agreement is executed, if you incurred costs, as long as it was after 7/1, whenever you execute it, we will reimburse those costs if they're allowable. But we can't do it until after it is the grant agreement is signed. Yeah, and you guys are aware, I think, that we did just get the agreement executed like about a week or so ago. So in the next couple weeks, you should be getting those subgrantee agreements from us. Okay, next one, number 11. Okay, so the cost must meet the following general criteria in order to be allowable under federal contracts, federal awards, sorry. They must be necessary and reasonable for the performance of the federal award and be applicable thereto under these principles. They must conform with any limitations or exclusions. They must be consistent with policies and procedures that apply uniformly to both federal finance and activities of the non-federal entity. So they have to basically be allowable for the federal grant and also your individual entity. And they must be accorded consistent treatment. A cost may not be assigned to a federal award as a direct cost if any other cost incurred for the same purpose in like circumstances can be allocated to federal award as an indirect cost. So if it's something that you would normally charge direct, you can't charge it indirect. If it's something you normally charge indirect, you can't change that to direct and out. It must be determined in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, except for state and local governments. Must not be included as a cost or used to meet cost sharing or matching requirements of any other federally financed program. And I don't think we've had that instance, but it basically means if you're required to spend so many dollars on another contract, you can't do that by using the dollars that we're giving you for this contract. And everything that is purchased and bought must be adequately documented. That means just, document every step of the way to the best of your ability. Yes, as it is subject to audit. Since this is a federal, we don't necessarily require every document when we receive every bill, but we will periodically, request additional documents if something looks odd or if we just, maybe we decide, we've received 15 this week, we have to look at something. It's part of our requirements as well to make sure that we're monitoring you guys. Okay, so with number 12, Phil, the budget modifications. Any deviation from the approved budget must be submitted for approval to the BJC GMO and Protestant Memorial Medical Center prior to purchase. So if you need something changed, it's not what's in your award, you need to make sure that you notify us in writing prior to making any changes. So you want to buy A, or you were supposed to buy item A, and now you want to buy item B. You need to run that by Phil. Make sure that you're getting approval in writing from us. Make sure that the GMO office and Phil are both included. While Phil really reviews it and makes a big part of that decision, we all need to be aware that it's happening so that when those bills come in, we know that we can, either approve them or hopefully not deny them. And that's even if it's a dollar change. So if you originally, proposed $3,000 and now you need $5,000, so you want to move something from a different line, you still need to notify us prior to any purchases to get that approval. Okay, so also, next, there you go. If there's a change in the project director or a scope requires a change, we need to be notified of that as well. I know last year we had several project directors, or not several, I think there was 2, that left. We were not aware that they left, and some of the money unfortunately just didn't get spent because the people who were left there didn't even know that they had money to spend. So anytime that there's a change in the personnel or the project director, or if there's a scope change, you need to let us know, and we'll do our best to try to accommodate when possible to get everything in order so that, things can be purchased. We don't want anyone losing the opportunity to use the funds that they've been given. Okay, invoicing and reporting procedures. The grant agreement will require monthly invoices submitted to the BJC GMO office. That's the official, that's where you officially submit them. However, we also ask that you also include Phil and myself, Christina Hendon-Atkins, on those emails as well, so that we can make sure they're getting processed, hopefully as quickly as possible. and that Phil will need to approve all those invoices, and then the GMO office processes them. So if you include him, hopefully, he'll do that sooner, and he'll be able to get his approval on that as well. We want to make sure everyone is aware invoices are due within 30 days of the month end, and the final invoice is due within 20 days of the month end, and that partially has to do with our reporting requirements. So if you don't get it to us by then, there's a chance you may not be getting paid. Also, if there's a month in which no costs were incurred, which there will be, we need you to submit a $0 invoice signed, just so that we make sure that we're accounting for every month in the period of performance. Okay, invoicing reminders. All invoices must be prepared with the BJC issued invoice template, and we will send that out to you with your agreement. The invoices must be physically signed and signature dated, so they have to both be signed and dated. Not the name. You can type your name in, but it needs to be actually physically signed as well with the date. All invoices must be complete and accurate. We don't want any. If there's missing information, we can't process it. Only items approved in the sub-agreement budget can be invoiced and reimbursed. So if you wanted to make a change and you didn't get it approved, unfortunately, it can't be reimbursed. All expenses must be allowable, allocable, and reasonable, which we kind of went over what that is. Invoices that are late may be rejected and not paid. You can always ask for an extension if you can't get something in. Let us know as soon as possible in writing, and we'll do what we can to try to extend that for you. And then at the bottom here, I'm just reminding you, please send all the invoices to all three of these places at the same time. The next page is an example of an invoice, pretty similar to last year. I mean, I think there's only really one change to it. But we want to make sure that when you're filling this out, all these, and I don't know how well you can see it on here, but all the yellow boxes need to be complete. So the invoicing period, you need to give your invoice a number. Make sure you put where you want the payment sent to, your name, who's the PI, fill in the current amounts with the month that you're billing. 1 month on each invoice. I know we had some issues last year where we tried to bill several months at a time. You can do that, but they have to be on separate invoices. And then the prior year-to-date amount should be filled in as well. And at the bottom, just write your name, title, phone number, and sign and date. And then you would just scan it and send it back to us. Okay, audit requirements. We are, because we do have an audit every year, and so we pass down our requirements to you. Any non-federal entity that expends $750,000 or more, which we do, so we're required to submit to that. We, based on kind of like how the rotation goes, pretty sure that everything is going to be looked at. So we're making sure that we're following all those rules and making sure that hopefully you are too. Also, any, and I'll be following up with you guys as well, but everyone who has the sub-agreement this year, we also need any audit reports that have been issued, whatever your most recently issued audit report is, we will need a copy of that as well. Documentation retention. Financial records, supporting documents, statistical records, and on all non-federal entity records pertinent to federal awards must be retained for a period of 3 years to the date of submission. So basically, there's 3 years from the date that I think the date is actually when we submit our invoices. So it'll be a little longer, probably 3 years for you guys. But make sure you're keeping all those original documentation and that they're accessible in case someone comes back in and requests them, because if it's determined even after it's paid, if it's determined that it was not allowable, the money can be, we can request that money back. So the next one is like our frequent errors, you know, things to do to avoid the frequent errors. So invoice costs by budget category must match the award budget line items. This was a big one, I think, last year. If you propose something and we awarded it to you under a supplies line, you need to bill it under the supplies line. It cannot be billed under the others line or the travel line. It has to be in the correct line. Otherwise, we'll send it back to you. Invoices must be signed by the appropriate authorized official, or if an invoice is revised, a new signature certification is required. I know there has been some incidences when something has changed, it was not signed again. So the signature on those invoices needs to occur when it's complete. If a change occurs to that invoice, it needs to be signed again. Please include Phil on the email when submitting your invoice to BJC GMO. He will need to approve the invoice before GMO can process. This will make it for a quicker reimbursement. Include the current monthly cost in column A and update this column B for all prior costs billed to date. That's so, you know, if you're working on March's invoice, you need to have everything that you've billed through February in that second column so that it's adding up correctly. And this is a reminder, travel and training can only be billed after the travel or training has occurred. All changes to the awarded items must be requested and approved in writing prior to procurement. I think that was the last, you know, frequent error that we've kind of seen. Does anyone have questions? Someone has to have a question.
Yes, guys, this is your opportunity, especially for those who've done this a couple times and maybe have got some kickback, or you really want an opportunity to speak about how to better do something. This is your opportunity, and you can provide that feedback now. I think I heard someone about to say something.
Phil, this is Sue from Staunton.
Hey, Sue.
Hey, when do we expect that grant agreement to show up in our lap?
Christina out there said, I'm sorry, go ahead, Christina.
Our goal is to have those out to you in the next 2 weeks.
Any other questions?
Well, I mean, if you have any after this, or maybe you're just shy, you're always welcome to send us an email, and we'll try to get you an answer as soon as possible.
I got one more, Phil. This is Sue again.
Sure.
We need to fill out a separate invoice for the first 9 months of this grant with a 0 on it, honestly.
Okay, yes, you will. So the best way to do that, and Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, are we gonna use like the similar spreadsheet we used last time, right?
Yes, and I will send it out with the agreements. I'll send it out to everyone.
Okay, so yeah, best way to do that is to, as soon as you get everything, just get all of that part done first, and you can have all of those. If we're using the same spreadsheet version that we used last year, you can print those out month by month.
So it is slightly different, but not in, I don't think it's going to be very noticeable. We did add one line to put their name on it.
Oh yeah, no problem. But I'm just saying, as far as they would be able to go through and look at June, July, or all the way through December, June, July, August, and doing a separate one. I want to make sure that's understood too, because I think last year we had some folks try to do like a full 6 month invoice, and the preference, I thought, it went back, or the direction it went back, was that they should do them for each month. So go ahead and monthly do them.
I think this is to ensure that we know that people aren't forgetting stuff, that we don't all of a sudden get an invoice later.
Yeah.
for February.
Yes.
So that's really to ensure that we know that you haven't, missed any invoices, that we haven't missed any invoices either.
Yes. That way you can do a month for month comparison, and you don't skip or have any gaps. Any other questions?
And some of you might have costs in prior months. I know last year, I think there was some travel that had already occurred, but it was approved in the budget, so that was reimbursed. So some people last year did have, an October invoice that they submitted, and were paid for prior to they weren't paid prior to the grant agreement signature, but once it was signed, we were able to go back and process that October invoice.
Exactly. Okay, so now that I'm hearing crickets, I guess we don't have any more questions. So I would like to things that I would like to say as far as some of the things that Christina went over when making those switches or changes within the budget. I do know that because of the time lapse it takes to get everything back from IDPH, that it does kind of, you may have something that you planned, but let's say it was an exercise, or maybe you needed some support for a specific thing, and then they're overcome by events. Maybe you went out and purchased it, or you found out, oh, I really didn't need that, and you want to change those values. You want to change it from your supplies to a piece of equipment or something like that. Make sure when you want to make that change, give me a call, shoot me an email, and we want to make sure that we're documenting that change and getting my approval. So sometimes we did have some folks try to change things, and well, I want to do this now, or I tried to do this now, and those things were not allocable expenses because we didn't do those proper steps. So please, if you ever have a question, please reach out before you make the change. Okay, before you make the change, lean as far forward as you can and ask the question. Also, I can't reiterate how important it is to send it to those org boxes. So we're capturing the data, and if somebody loses something, we can go back and find it. So please make sure that you're sending them to the right email addresses. Other than that, go ahead.
We haven't issued those agreements yet. If someone knows now that they have something that they need to change what they proposed or what you already approved, if they can do that ASAP, it may be possible to get it changed in the original agreement so that we don't have to do a revision to the agreement later.
Exactly.
I know. Yeah, so I mean, our goal is to have those out in 2 weeks, but if you know today that you're not going to be able to do that, you need to change something, let us know that. And if it may be possible for us to change that original agreement before it even gets to you. And one other thing I think was a big one last year, please make sure that if you're spending more than $10,000 on an item, that you're doing those procedures that you have to be done in order to make that allowable.
Exactly.
It has to be done before it's ordered. You can't order it and then do that, 3 days later. It has to be done prior to when it was ordered. Not when it comes in, but before it was ordered. Any other questions, Phil, or any other reminders there?
I don't think so. This will, again, I did record this, so I'm about to stop recording here just in a second, and I'll have this posted up today. So if you need to just go back and rewind it, you can, and you have a copy of the accompanying slides. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, and Christina and crew. We hope that this year goes smoothly, and next year I did get some good words from IDPH on some things that they're going to change to help us get the money sooner. And we'll talk about that at our next meeting. So I do think the FY21 will be a much smoother process for everyone. So thank you. We're going to end it here. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.